Good evening. I'd like to call the regular Town Council meeting of Monday, March 17th, 2025 to order. And if you are able, please rise for the Pledge of Allegiance. Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Roll call, please.
Councilor Buganski. Councilor Lewis.
Present.
Councilor Balboni.
Present.
Councilor Carey.
Present.
Mayor Delnicki.
Here.
Deputy Mayor Siracusa. Councilor King.
Here.
Councilor Fitzgerald.
Here.
Councilor Pendleton.
Present.
Okay, moving on to have a few mayor's remarks. On Saturday, March 15th, I had the pleasure of attending and marching in the St. Patrick's Day Parade in Hartford with the South Windsor contingent. And today I would like to wish everyone a happy St. Patrick's Day and allow me to share this one Irish proverb. May your heart be light, your worries be few, your joy be abundant, and your friends be true. Happy St. Patrick's Day to all, and I hope everybody enjoys their little carnation on their desks tonight. So happy St. Patrick's Day. And this Thursday, March 20th, marks the first day of spring, a season that embodies rejuvenation, renewal, and the promise of fresh beginnings. And just a friendly reminder, we have a public hearing tonight at 8 p.m. regarding ordinance number 237, the Agricultural Commission. Okay. Moving on to item 5, adoption of the agenda. Councilor Pendleton.
I'd like to adopt the agenda as presented.
Second.
Any additions, changes? Councilor Buganski?
Yes, I'd like to make a motion to move items 13E and 13F up to after item 7, public input for items on the agenda.
We have a second on. Any discussion on that motion? No, any discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor of the move of 13E and F? Aye. Opposed? Any other additions, changes? That was behind item number 7? Yes. Any other additions, changes? Seeing none, motion to approve to adopt the agenda as amended. You have a second? Second. All those in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed? Hearing none, motion carries. Moving on to item 6, communications and reports from the town manager.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. We're going to keep this really quick because I know we have a lot of other stuff to do with the budget tonight. Just in terms of my report, very quickly, there's an economic development update memo in your packet, so all of you can read that on your own time. In terms of our tax sale, which was held last week on Thursday, we did end up auctioning off 2 properties, and the town was owed approximately $40,000 for each of those properties, and we made that back very easily. So that was good news. That being said, I want to turn it over to Andrea Cofrancesco, who's going to give us a quick update from the Human Services Department.
Okay. All right, hi everybody. Mike asked me to come and just give a brief overview of the Human Services Department, which, as you know, consists of youth and family and adult and senior. So I'm going to go kind of quickly because I have 5 minutes. So right now for the social services piece of our department, we're dealing with a lot of anxiety with low-income families, migrants, older adults on fixed incomes. There's a lot going on in the world, as you know, and we're kind of trying to field those issues. We're continuing to help people with a variety of different financial assistance programs. The increase in senior housing has kept us very busy, and I might say job security. We have 4,000, I did the statistics specifically for this meeting, over 4,000 rides that we provide just in the senior housing complexes in town. That's not including any new people, obviously. People continue to age in place, and we have an aging population, and it's a really big, important part of our program. There's a lack of affordable housing in Connecticut. South Windsor's not, immune to that. I know there's a lot of affordable housing complexes, affordable. You and I know affordable is not what's coming up. That's not what's happening. We need things like the South Windsor Housing Authority, where it's based on your income. The affordable, where people purchase at a lower rate, is just not really realistically affordable. So we are continuing to meet the needs of people as much as we can with lack of resources. There's been a lot of changes within the Eversource program. I'm not going to get into all the details with that, but people are really struggling, and we're able to meet the needs of a lot of people because of the generosity of this town. So we are able to help people with the food and the fuel bank. Regarding senior center programs, I'm super pumped to report that we have $62,000 already raised since August for our new cafe. We do need about another $125,000, but it was kind of like a 2-year campaign, and we are doing really well with that. Everyone would have received an invitation to the 45th anniversary celebration. We welcome you to attend that if you can. And in the past 3 months, people that have been joining the senior center, 137, and then since last year, 718. So word is out. We're getting a lot of younger people within our pickleball program, which of course is in its 14th year. We were the 3rd pickleball program in the state. So it's not new to us, but of course it's all over the news. So we're seeing a lot of new people. And our transportation coordinator is retiring after 19 years, and we found Cindy Malone. She's a really hard one to replace. She does so much within our department, but we have a good person starting on Monday. She's actually one of our per diem bus drivers, so we're super excited about that. Our youth and family services counseling, we have 71 current open cases. There's 11 people on the wait list. We are continuing to see more severe cases than in the past few years, just because of childhood trauma and death or terminal illness of a parent. So we're seeing a lot of people that really need a lot of help, a lot of the youth. COVID did not help. A lot of the truancy cases are on the rise, and Connecticut law, which is kind of a new law, requires that youth service bureaus has to accept and provide services for truancy cases. Within our prevention programs, we have 30 high school students tutoring 40 students at TE every week. The SAD Club, which is Students Against Destructive Decisions, recently held a vaping program at the high school for the entire school. 260 students attended the Relieve the Stress Fest at the high school using grant funds, and that was to try to help give the kids just an opportunity to kind of de-stress. We had a screening of a documentary for parents on trying to help them learn the dangers of social media, and we had 40 people attend that. We had a high school student recently go to the state capitol to testify on the importance of state funding for substance prevention, and we are hosting a free Narcan training and resource fair on April 1st using the opioid settlement funds, and we have over 10 community organizations attending that. Our teen center programs and numbers are increasing. We have 15 to 25 middle schoolers. That's up from about 10 to 15. And then we have high schoolers between 30 and 50 in a day. So if you've seen this teen center, 30 to 50 kids in that space is a lot. But we're super excited about it that kids want to come. And then we have a lot of other programs that are planned through the teen center with our new coordinator. She's also inviting homeschool families. She's creating a cooking class, kindness days, and a lot more volunteer opportunities. So there's a lot happening in human services. This is just in a nutshell, but we're happy to be able to serve South Windsor people. Any questions?
Counselor Pendleton?
Thank you. I don't have a question. I just want to say that I'm tired just listening to you. There's no way, that is a boatload of stuff you're doing, and thank you so much and your staff for all that you do and helping our community and our residents within our community and the young people in our community.
I'll pass that along.
I know I
appreciate
truly
it.
appreciate you.
Yeah, thank you so much. I will definitely let the staff know because they're a great group of people that really care.
Counselor Carey?
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I just want to say great job, but also did you want to let whoever's listening know about your chocolate sales through your cafe? Because that maybe you could start up some business.
Well, it closed.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, it closed last week, but we made $2,000 on it.
Yeah.
So I think people like chocolate.
Counselor King?
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Thank you so much. Awesome job. So you mentioned in regards to the services that you're able to provide, but specifically food and electricity, and you said thank you to the generosity of the town. Can you talk more about that in terms of the generosity of the town?
Yeah, so, well, the food bank relies 100% on donations. There's a lot of civic groups and businesses that do food drives for us. We do utilize Midwest Food Bank now, which is a relatively new food bank in Manchester, and that's been really helpful. But there's a lot of groups that do food drives. We are still using the holiday food that we receive because people, it's a season of giving. And we do store that overflow at a local church, so we are able to go tap into that when we need it. We also receive, a lot of the churches and other civic groups also provide money or donations of gift cards so that we can give those out to people who, you can't get everything in our food bank, right? And so we'll purchase some vegetables and meat or whatever. We do provide dairy products twice a month we purchase, and people can come in for that, which is super helpful, all utilizing donated funds. And then regarding our energy program, our fuel bank, we are able to help people about once every 12 months, and that will help them, keep a shut-off for electric or a gas delivery or an oil delivery for people if they qualify.
Now, where do those resources come from on the electricity?
Those are all donated monies. This is a great community. I mean, I don't even ask, and people just bring it. And 100% is put back into the community. It's not like there's any administrative costs or, and I think people recognize that and they know that they're helping their neighbors.
So essentially, when someone, and I'll admit it, yes, I had to use it when I got laid off right after COVID, and I had to come through and get some help, and thank God for it. So you're suggesting that all of those, when people need money to pay for their certain bills, that all comes, that's also a part of that as well?
Well, it's not just, any bill, it's.
Of course, 'cause you
Yeah,
have to-
I mean, it's, the energy
have to
part of it.
qualify, right.
We do have a special needs fund, which again is 100% donated by the community, and that kind of helps people pay a bill that might fall not in a category of food and fuel. And it's gotta be reasonable, it can't pay, 6 months worth of
Right, of course.
mortgage, but it could help random things like, car registration or a pair of eyeglasses, or it can fill in the gaps, but we usually try to get people to put some money towards it, and we don't usually just give it if it's a Band-Aid. So if we have to put money down for like a security deposit, it has to help them. It can't just give the homeowner, the landlord money. It has to help the person. It can't just put a Band-Aid on it.
Awesome, thank you, good job.
Okay, seeing nothing further, thank you so much.
Thank you.
Moving on to item 7, public input for any item on the agenda. Public input shall not exceed 30 minutes. When recognized by the mayor, the speakers shall approach the lectern, give their name and address. Speakers shall avoid personal attacks or impugning or alleging an improper motive to any person. The speakers may address the council on any item on the agenda. The speaker shall limit their speaking time to 5 minutes. Is there anyone who'd like to come forward at this time? Anyone like to come forward for any item on the agenda? Going once, twice. Okay. Moving on to item 13E, Councilor Balboni.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Resolution accepting the resignation of Stephen Cordero as a member of the Public Building Commission effective February 27th, 2025. Be it resolved that the South Windsor Town Council hereby accepts with regret the resignation of Stephen Cordero as a member of the Public Building Commission effective February 27th, 2025. And be it further resolved that the South Windsor Town Council extends its thanks to Stephen Cordero for the time dedicated to serving the community by membership on the Public Building Commission.
Second.
We have a motion, we have a second. Any discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed? Hearing none, resolution passes. Moving on to 13F, Councilor King.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Resolution accepting the resignation of Timothy Appleton as a member of the Board of Assessment Appeals effective February 13th, 2025. Be it resolved that the South Windsor Town Council hereby accepts with regret the resignation of Timothy Appleton as a member of the Board of Assessment Appeals effective February 13th, 2025. Be it further resolved that the South Windsor Town Council extend its thanks to Timothy Appleton for the time dedicated to serving the community by membership on the Board of Assessment Appeals.
We have a motion, we have a second. Any discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed? Hearing none, resolution passes. Okay, moving on to item 8, adoption of previous meeting minutes. Counselor Fitzgerald.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I move approval of the February 24th, 2025 Town Council Special Meeting Minutes. Be it resolved that the South Windsor Town Council hereby approves the minutes of the Special Town Council meeting of February 24th, 2025.
Second.
Okay, we have a motion, we have a second. Any discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed? Abstentions? Roll call, please.
Counselor Buganski? Counselor Lewis? Counselor Balboni? Counselor Carey?
Aye.
Mayor Delnicki?
Yes.
Deputy Mayor Siracusa? Counselor King?
Yes.
Counselor Fitzgerald? Aye. Counselor Pendleton?
Yes.
All right, 7 and 1, sorry.
Okay. 7 and 1, resolution passes, or approval passes. Moving on to item B, Counselor Fitzgerald.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I move approval of the March 3rd, 2025 Town Council regular meeting minutes. Be it resolved that the South Windsor Town Council hereby approves the minutes of the regular Town Council meeting of March 3rd, 2025.
Second.
We have a motion, we have a second. Any discussion, changes? Okay, all those in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed? Abstentions? Roll call.
Counselor Buganski? Counselor Lewis? Counselor Balboni? Counselor Carey?
Aye.
Mayor Delnicki?
Yes.
Deputy Mayor Siracusa? Counselor King?
Yes.
Counselor Fitzgerald? Counselor Pendleton?
Yes.
All right, 7 and 1.
7 and 1, okay. Motion passes. Moving on to item 9, communications from liaisons, officers, boards, and directly responsible to the council. Anyone have any reports? Counselor Carey?
Planning and zoning met this, last week. They closed the, public hearing for the solar farm, and they did approve, a new 50-plus SRD, senior retirement development, off of Foster Street.
And what was the outcome of the solar farm?
The solar farm was approved as well.
Okay. Okay, any other items? Anyone else? Okay, seeing none. Moving on to item 10, reports from committees. Seeing none. And moving on to item 11, consent agenda, 11A1, Counselor Carey.
Motion to approve 11A1 is first reading on the consent agenda. Resolution appointing Michael LeBlanc as a member of the Public Building Commission. Be it resolved that the South Windsor Town Council hereby appoints Michael LeBlanc as a member of the Public Building Commission for a term ending November 30th, 2025, to replace the unexpired term of Steve Cordero, and postpones consideration of this motion until the next regularly scheduled meeting.
Any discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed, abstentions, resolution passes. 11, 2A, Counselor King.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Motion to approve 11A2 through 11A4 as a first reading on the consent agenda.
We have a motion, we have a second. Any discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed, abstentions, resolution passes. Okay, 11B, having none. 11C, having none. Item 12, unfinished business, having none. Moving on to 13A, presentation and discussion of general government budget fiscal year 25-26. Mr. Maniscalco.
All right. I believe you should all have hard copies on your dais up there as well. Maybe not. No? Okay, then you don't. This will be available online for, after the presentation, I'm sure, for everybody to look at tomorrow. But that being said, welcome to the 2025-2026 budget presentation. With it being St. Patrick's Day, we thought we'd start out with a little Irish quote here. And I did want to let everybody know that throughout the presentation, we've hidden a couple of four-leaf clovers for people to try to find. So we're going to make sure that all of you are paying attention to the whole thing. And if any of our residents want to send me an email and let me know on how many they find and on what slides, we can might have a little something for them if they reach out. So we're giving everybody a little test as we go. So, as we do every year, we have our budget process starts with the town council, all of you. And you guys all approve a budget policy statement. And we broke it down to kind of some of the four big picture items that we tried to use to create our budget this year. And that those four items, first of all, is to ensure taxpayer input in the budget process, maintain transparency, maintain or increase current levels of services, and of course, target no increase over the current budget for fiscal year 2024-25. Couple things I just want to point out in terms of maintaining transparency. We will have a budget book online for everybody to review. We have budget tools online. People can go dig through our budget, take a look at line by line, whatever you want. They could eliminate my job from the budget, see what that does, and go from there. So, moving on from the budget policy statement from the council, I then put together a set of guidelines that I issue to all my staff. Those guidelines this year were the following. Follow the approved budget policy statement. That always doesn't happen because sometimes it takes the council a little longer to get it done. You guys did it in a timely manner, so we were able to use that in my guidelines. No new positions. That's been pretty standard for the last 4 or 5 years. Justify current requests versus the 5-year actuals. That's a process that I've gone through every year that I've done a budget for a municipality. Basically what we do is we take the 5 years of the actual expenditures and we compare them to what is being requested. We try to line those up, and those are places where we have conversations and say, why is it that you're not spending any money in this line item? Or why are you overspending this line item? And how do we make sure that those start bringing each other together? Of course, we have to follow our bargaining agreements. We can't ignore them. We have the requirement that we've already made those commitments, so we have to follow those commitments. And lastly, we requested all of our departments to submit a 0 budget increase. So this year's budget, overall increase at the end of the day is a 4.86% increase. The overall budget, this is everything together, all 4 buckets, was $159,231,756. That's an increase of $7,373,366 over last year. So where is that increase all going? So as I said, that includes the 4 buckets, and you're going to hear me talk about those 4 buckets throughout the presentation. We're going to focus mostly on the town operations, but we do talk about those 4 buckets throughout. Our 4 buckets are capital, debt service, town operations, and education. So we all heard from our superintendent of schools last week, who's talking to us about the requests for education. Our capital needs are our funding for our big picture, big ticket, hard infrastructure items, our roads, our parks, some of those items are in there. Our debt service, that's like our credit card. You know, we've used our credit card to pay for our schools, we've used it to pay for some of our road work that's been done, those are obligations we must pay this year. And lastly, our town operations. That is our police, our fire, our public works, our parks and recreation, our library, all the other services that our community offers, that's what's in that bucket. As you can see, our town operations budget is increasing by 2.02% this year. Our debt service is increasing by 6.14%, our capital by 2%, and then, as we heard last week, education by 5.97%. So how did we get to where we are? And this is kind of the way this all moved through. If you look at the top row, the black row at the top, that's the request from our departments. And you can see the request for our debt, the request for our capital, the request for education. I have the ability to make some adjustments to some of those. So I'd made adjustments of $599,558. I reduced that out of the general government operating budget. You can see that we want to pay our debts, so I kept that number the same. We actually had to increase it just a little bit because we were off a little bit in what our numbers were. And then in terms of capital, you'll see there's a decrease there. But that's not really a decrease to the overall capital budget. We're going to come back to that, and we'll talk about that a little later. But there's a decrease shown from the general government side. And then lastly, you can see education. I don't have the authority to change that at all, so we move that back down to the total budget. This is our 5-year budget history. As you can see, kind of laying out the increases over the 5 years. And being an individual who has a history degree, I always think we can learn from our history and where we've come from and where we're going. So I think it adds some value to it. So you can see the Board of Ed overall average increase over that 5 years is 7.04%. Whereas our capital is at 16.87%, debt is at 7.37%, and our general government increase over that 5 years is at 2.42%. We're all taxpayers in the town of South Windsor, and I think it's important to know where our dollar goes. And I think there's a lot of value to that, and I personally find it important. So, as you can see, this is how your dollar, when you pay for your taxes, is cut up. You can see 26% goes to town operations, 4% goes to debt associated with the town, so that's roads and infrastructure work that's been done, maybe some debt associated with purchasing open space, things of that nature. 2% goes to capital projects, that's the big infrastructure projects we've talked about. 5% is going to debt associated with education, so our schools, paying for our schools. And then 63% is going towards the cost of actually educating our children. So let's dig a little deeper into that town operations bucket. This is our town operations budget overall. You can see the total change is 2.02% or $811,350. Most of that goes towards salaries. And as I stand here every year and I say to everybody every year, we are a people-driven business. We are a service business and we have people. The things that we do cannot be done by computers. They can't be done by robots. They can't be done by AI. They have to be done by people. A lot of the work that we do requires, a lot of the people then require a salary. So one of our largest drivers in our budget is our salary line item. As you can see, a good portion of that salary line item is contractual because we have a number of collective bargaining units within our community. We have a small portion of that that's non-contractual. So the items on the right side of the line are items that are increasing the budget. The items on the left side of the line are things that I've decreased from the budget overall. So you can see one of the larger decreases is department equipment, and that was moving a piece of equipment from an actual outright purchase to a lease scenario. You can see some of the supplies, we've decreased that. Our maintenance contracts got decreased. But you can see the drivers are our salaries and benefits, our utility increases, our grant contributions, our refuse recycling, and professional fees. And just to point out, grant contributions, that's mostly the fire department. So let's get to, so our budget history. Again, being a student of history, what does that look like? I wanted to give you guys a 10-year history to kind of give you a little bit more what this looks like overall. So you can see the average increase over the last 10 years for the general government has actually been 2.91%. This year, we're at 2.02. You can see previous years, it's been a little bit different overall, but that our overall increase on average is 2.91%. Our employee history, as I mentioned earlier in my guidelines to the staff, and as we've been holding true all the way through, we have 199 full-time employees, and we have kept that straight from 2020. Maybe it's going to change. There we go. Again, also looking at history and trends, our town operations expenditures to our overall budget, how that looks. As you can see, from 2022 to 2026, we've become less and less, smaller and smaller portion of the overall total budget. You could also see on the right here, the actual dollars and cents increase going from 37 million up to 40 million in the proposed budget. And this is our capital budget and the actual contributions to the capital budget. So as I said, this was an item we're going to talk about a little bit, just to highlight, you know, as you saw in my proposal, there's a reduction of $166,000. While we reduced the general fund contribution or the tax contribution towards the capital budget, we're replacing that with a contribution from the local capital improvement grant, which is a grant we received from the state. So the total dollar amount for the actual budget stays what was requested from the capital committee. We're just funding it slightly different. I think as we've discussed in the last couple years, we want to talk about our state budget cap. This is one item that's still out there that we need to be aware of, that's still something that could come up to jump at us at some point. So the state of Connecticut, our legislature decided to pass Connecticut General Statute 4-66, which established a municipal budget cap at 2.5% or the rate of inflation. Prior to 2 years ago, we were not receiving the actual rate of inflation from OPM, and I think a lot of people at the state had come to the conclusion that the budget cap couldn't really be implemented the way it had been written. OPM has now started issuing the rate of inflation to municipalities. This year, they issued the rate of inflation at 3.31%. The budget cap, to figure it, is not the overall total budget. There's a number of items that are left out of it. Some of the bigger ones include our debt service, special education, capital expenditures, and unfunded pension liabilities. There's also some others like arbitration awards and other items like that that are left out, but those are typically smaller in our budget that we don't take into account usually. The proposed budget that I'm issuing to all of you does not meet the state budget cap requirements. I'm going to just make that very clear. I believe you'd need to probably reduce about $2 million additional out of the budget to get to that number. That being said, I think it's important at this time, the way the state budget cap is written and the way the state budget is funded, there's no risk for the town of South Windsor to lose any funding. Now that can change, remember I said at this time, but there is no risk at this moment. So it's something that I think is important, we're all aware of, and we keep on our radar. This has been a topic of conversation at the Connecticut Conference of Municipalities as of recent. A lot of my other colleagues in other communities are paying very close attention to it, as well as our legislative lobbyists that are at the state are watching very closely. And there's a lot of conversation about how different grants are being moved around and funded at the state level associated with the budget cap. So just be aware. So the other side of the budget is revenues. So our total proposed budget is $159,231,756. So we need to come up with that amount of money. And this is kind of the overall pie, what that looks like. So as you can see, property taxes, as every year, make up the large portion of that at 85.9%. Miscellaneous items make up 1.6%. Our local revenues are 1.5%. Intergovernmental, those are grants from the state, make up 9%, and then transfers, which is 2%. All right, and now our revenue changes, kind of how we see in this budget proposal, those are going to look. So our local revenues are up by 77,000 in our projections based upon permits and fees. Our interest, we're projecting that to be up by about 100,000. Hopefully the market keeps going in a good direction. Our transfers from tax stabilization, as you can see, is up about 16%. Our state grants, again, we're trying to estimate those up a little bit more, the big one being education cost sharing. And then lastly, our taxes, which would be up 4.82%. So use of surplus funds, as the council put in their budget policy statement, there's no use of fund balance per the budget policy statement. That being said, we do have a tax stabilization fund. We did use that in order to get your mill rate and for this budget. So if all of you remember last year, you did pass some legislation in order to identify an increase to the tax stabilization fund, and we are proposing that increase be used in this proposed budget as well. Our education cost sharing grant, which is our largest funding source from the state, comes in at around, it's been proposed from the governor, which is that green line, at $11,408,078. You can see what we actually have received. We actually budget a little bit less than that in the proposed budget because we have to, the state takes about $600,000 and sends it to our magnet school locally, the magnet school we have locally, so they get about $600,000 out of that. So, oops, so we're missing a little bit out of that number. So you can see where we're getting it, where we're actually coming in. Our grand list. So how do we generate all this money? It's coming from our grand list. Our grand list, and this is the number I love to say for all of you every year, is $3,791,359,731 is the total value of our current grand list. So this last year, and I'm pretty kind of pleased to report this to all of you, we have a 0.14% increase from last year in our grand list. And I'm going to tell you that's an actual feat in itself. While I know it's a small number, and I think all of us are probably wishing we had a much larger number increase, this year there's a number of headwinds that are kind of pushing against our grand list from growing. And for us to actually turn out an increase is a pretty big deal. So as you can see in the donut chart on the left side of the screen, this is the way our grand list is broken out with real estate, motor vehicle, and personal property. Of course, real estate's the largest of that item. And then you can just kind of see in terms of grand list growth year over year. Of course, everybody's looking at 2022 saying, what happened? I don't understand. That's our reval year. We always have to point that out. That happens every 5 years. It's required by the state that we have a reval year. You can see the growth in 2017 as well. So that kind of gives you an idea. Now, in terms of our grand list, as I said, we had some headwinds. The state of Connecticut and our legislature passed a number of different items this last year. We reported all of those to you, I think, during the quad board meeting earlier, that were going to really impact us pretty negatively. And as you can see, our estimate's about $51.8 million in terms of the loss to our grand list. That included veterans exemption at 100% service-connected disability, our motor vehicle valuation from NADA to MSRP with a depreciation pricing model, so that's probably one of the largest ones, and then certain residential utility vehicles no longer being taxable. So the actual figure was only $42.7 million, so we got a little bit better there, which gave us a positive change to our grand list of 0.14%. But the key I want to point out to all of you is how do we compare to our neighbors when it comes to all this? Because we're all experiencing the same thing. Our neighbors, a lot of them had negative grand list growth, and we had positive because we have a community that has a lot of value in it. We have a community that's working hard at its economic development, that's growing, that's doing good things, that's providing and showing value through our grand list. So you could just see some of the other communities like Glastonbury had 1.17% loss to their grand list. Same with Ellington, 1.46. Summers was 2.61%. Manchester's 2.43%. So I think overall we should be pretty happy with the 0.14% increase. So let's talk about our mill rate. This is how we calculate our taxes and what our mill rate looks like. So as you can see, our mill rate is proposed in this budget to increase by 1.74 mils, or 5.05%. The motor vehicle mill rate, as everybody remembers, the state of Connecticut came in and put a cap in place on motor vehicles, so the motor vehicle mill rate is capped at 32.46, but our overall mill rate is proposed to be increased for our residential properties at 1.74 mils. One of the items that I think is always interesting to look at this, as you look at the mill rates, you can almost pick out the years when we have reval, because the mill rate will drop and then slowly edge up in the years after that. So what is driving our mill rate, and how are we getting to the mill rate? What are the big drivers behind it? So as you can see, the things above the line are the things that are increasing our mill rate. The things below the line are pulling that mill rate back down. So the increasers on the mill rate actually increased the mill rate by 2.16, and the decreasers decreased it by 0.42. Some of the big ones, of course, education at 1.65, debt service at 0.25, town operations 0.24, and capital at 0.02. All of those were increasers on the mill rate. The decreasers are our tax revenues, our non-tax revenues, I'm sorry, at 0.3, our grand list growth at 0.08, and our collection rate assumption, which we modified slightly to bring more in line, at 0.04. So, how do we calculate the mill rate? We take our proposed expenditures at $159,231,756. We reduce it by our non-tax revenues, which this year we're proposing to be $24,386,559. We also take out our motor vehicle revenue, which is $9,109,052. That equals the amount of taxes that we have to raise to balance our budget, which is $125,736,145. We then divide that by the value of a mill, and I think this is important for all of us to remember as we go through our budget process. I think this is one number for all of us to write down, because we're always talking about how do we reduce the budget by a full mill. The value of 1 mill, so to reduce that budget by 1 mill, you would need to cut $3,473,355. So you divide the amount raised that's needed to be raised by taxes by the value of a mill, and that gets us to the 36.2 mill rate. So what does that mean for me, the general taxpayer? I think that's the big question everybody's asking in the room. What does that look like? At the end of the day, based on the proposed tax increase in the budget, the assessed, based on an assessed value of a home, we're saying the average home value in town is about $350,000. That would be about a $609 change for the year, or a 5.05% change. So, all of you on your agenda tonight have another item to talk about, and this has a potential impact on the proposed budget that I have here, so we needed to add a slide for it. It's House Bill 7067 and the grand list, basically. So essentially what that House bill does, it gives you the option to change the motor vehicle depreciation from 85% to 90%, which would essentially change and add approximately $19 million to the grand list, which would be a positive change of 0.64% over the previous year. And then actually what it would do is it would reduce our overall budget increase by about a 0.5 percentage point, bringing us down to 4.54% increase. So that's something for all of you to think about, and I'm sure we're going to have some more in-depth conversation about that as we get to that item on the agenda. But wanted to make sure that was on here for all of you to look at. All right. As always, this is not just a process that's done here at the council table. The public is involved. There's public hearings, special working groups, lots of meetings for the public to attend, things for people to talk about. We encourage the public and everybody else to get involved and to attend and participate. If you get online, again, there's tons of things available for you to look at and dig through the town's budget. Cut out my salary, it's great. You can see what happens. And lastly, if you have any questions, concerns as a member of the public, thoughts as a member of the public, I'm always available. My contact information's right there. And I'm always happy to try to answer those questions about the budget for all of you. And with that, that is the end of my presentation. I thank all of you for taking the time to look at it and kick off this process. And I look forward to working with everybody from now until May.
Counselor Balboni? Oh. Okay. Counselor Carey.
I do have one question. Are you aware, are other municipalities pushing back on the legislature for the changes they're making that negatively impact towns?
Sure. Yeah, I mean, I have been to a number of CCM meetings as well as on a number of different webinar, Zoom calls as of recent, and a lot of municipalities are very upset over the idea that the decisions made at our legislature are costing us money. Last year, due to the motor vehicle cap, which was a decision made by the state, that cost us $2 million in revenue. This year, we're looking at about $2 million lost in revenue because of the change in the way they're valuing motor vehicles. I think, unfortunately, some of the members at the state are making decisions in an effort to buy votes, and they're doing certain things to say, look, I'm giving you money back by saving you money by doing it this way, but yet they're costing us more money at the municipal level. So they're making us pay for the things that they're spending on their side. So I can tell you it's being expressed to all of them through CCM. I would encourage all of you to reach out to your local legislators and make sure that they're aware. I've tried to talk to some of them. It's been an interesting conversation. I think that unfortunately decisions are being made in vacuums that they're not really taking the time to see the long-term big picture impact. I can tell you from the motor vehicle cap, nobody took the time to really look at what happens to the grant that they were giving to municipalities to make up the difference between the cap and what the town actually needed when reval occurred. So nobody took the time to really look at what happens 5 years from now. And those are the types of questions and things that need to occur, because it's not as simple as just we put a cap in place. We have things like reval that then happen.
Thank you.
Counselor Pendleton?
Thank you. I just wrote a note here because I saw back on one of your slides for the veterans exemption for the 100% disability rating. Where do we stand within our community on what we do, please? The state said what, or what do we do? Is that the 100% is ours, or is that the state, or?
So that we have to offer that 100%. So the state has now put that in place.
So we're offering, for our veterans that were 100% disabled, we offer them a better exemption or something here in town?
We're offering a better exemption than what was offered last year.
Because the state
Changed it.
Okay. So that affects less money that we're getting?
That means less money is now coming in.
Right.
Correct.
And you gave us at one point, Mary, a number of how many are?
The number of veterans, I believe roughly the total assessed value was about 6 million. I think there was about 35 veterans that qualified at 100%.
Okay. Okay, thank you.
Counselor Fitzgerald?
Thank you. Since it's on our agenda to vote on this resolution about the modified schedule of depreciation, can you just explain that a little bit more? Because
Sure.
math is not my thing.
I've got the heavy hitters with me for when we get there. But let me, a couple items associated with it. First of all, I typically don't like to put something on your agenda like that you'd need to vote on in the same night. Unfortunately, due to the way that it was passed and the timing of everything, if you don't pass that item tonight, then, and let's just say you postpone it to your next meeting, it won't be able to be done for the tax bills that go out in July. You certainly can do it for the next year, it just won't happen in this year, or for these upcoming tax bills. Essentially, what we're doing is changing the depreciation from 85% to 90%. So I'm going to defer to some of the other smarter people in the room who are probably going to give us a lot better answers in a couple minutes, right? I'm good so far? Well, you're hitting the end of it. Which basically it's allowing us to generate more revenue.
How?
Instead of 85%, you're getting 90%.
Turn it to the assessor.
Basically, what the state has done is allowed the towns a local option, right? The state started talking about this legislation at least 4 or 5 years ago, and they pushed the effective date a couple of years, so it first became effective with the October 1, 2024 grant list. What they're saying now, because of some of the pushback that they've gotten from the towns, is that instead of starting your new model year cars at an 85% depreciation from MSRP, you can raise it to 90%. Okay? So it adds about $19 million. These are all estimates. These are best available information. It adds about $19 million to your motor vehicle grant list. Not to get into math early in the evening, but I see a lot of faces that, so if you had a car that the MSRP was $10,000, right? To get to that net depreciated value under current legislation, you'd use 85% depreciation. So you'd be calculating the assessment on $8,500. What the state is saying to you is you can now take that $10,000 MSRP, use a 90% depreciation, and calculate that assessment on $9,000. And I'm gonna stop. I'm gonna wait till. Okay.
So does that, so it's more revenue to the town? Does that mean it costs our tax, costs the townspeople more money?
It's more assessment on your motor vehicle grant list. Basically shifts some of the tax burden from the real estate and the majority of the personal property, because it also affects motor vehicles that are on your personal property grant list. So it's going to shift some of that. I think Mike's slide showed a 36.2 mill rate dropping to 36.02. You're still collecting the taxes. It's just in a different class of property.
So it brings the mill rate down, but you're still essentially paying the same amount.
Right, you're still collecting that, whatever the budget number is.
You pay less on your house, more on your car.
Right, so it brings the rate down, but you're paying the same amount, because you're just paying it
More
on
or
your
less.
car.
You're just
instead of
moving it to a
your-
different
yeah,
bucket.
Yeah, okay. Okay, thank you.
But you tax it 9,000 instead of 8,500, right?
That's what you're calculating the assessment on, that's the net depreciated.
So it's just a who's paying Peter or Paul kind of a thing. But Peter is paying for both, regardless. Awesome.
On the $1.74, well, on the 174 mill rate, it drops it about 18 cents per $1.74. So you're raising people's taxes $1.74 per thousand, but you'd be dropping it 18 cents.
Awesome.
Does that make sense? No.
No, but I understand.
I'll be here all night.
Thank
The
you.
jokes don't get any better.
If you want to, you can vote on it.
Counselor King?
Counselor Carey or Balboni, you have some additional insight, please? Because I thought I understood it, where it was, it's, instead of, I'm still paying for my coffee, I'm still paying for my water, No, my coffee and my soda, because both are caffeinated. However, if we vote on this thing tonight, going from 85 to 90, I just happen to be paying more for the coffee. But it's still, but I'm paying less on the soda. That's what I'm hearing?
No.
Similar, close.
Counselor Balboni?
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Basically, your larger asset, your house, you're gonna be paying less on. If you don't own any cars, now you just got a deduction. Then for each car you own, if you have, say, a nice Tesla, then you're gonna be paying the higher percentage. If you drive a 2004 Honda, it's not gonna affect you as much. You're gonna get much more out of your house than you're gonna pay extra in your car in general, for the most part. So the people it's gonna affect the most will be the people that are renting, that own cars in town. Because their taxes will go up because they don't pay home taxes. Mostly newer vehicles is what it leans towards.
Counselor Carey?
So, Mary, I did have a question, because one of the things I think I heard you say is that this also impacts personal taxes. So for companies, if they have cars, they will use this depreciation as well. So if you have companies, right, so industrial businesses, maybe commercial businesses, and they have trucks or other things that are taxable vehicles, instead of having 85% depreciation, they will be at this 90%. So there is some movement of this from, just our residents that own homes to both the commercial, industrial individuals, as well as to taxpayers who own cars. That was right? Okay.
Now I have another question.
Counselor Balboni?
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Commercial businesses, they pay their motor vehicle taxes through the motor vehicle. Personal property has nothing to do with motor vehicles whatsoever, unless it's an unregistered motor vehicle. Isn't that correct?
It's either unregistered or out-of-state registered, right? If you have an IRP plate or you have a Maine or New Hampshire, all of those vehicles, if they're located in town, get cleared and taxed through the personal property system.
Oh, really? Out-of-state registrations do as well?
And there's about 70.
Don't let Plainville know that? Okay.
I think we're good. We got 1 minute to our public hearing, so we'll take a 1 minute pause. Okay, it's 8 o'clock. We are now going to suspend the regular town council meeting for our public hearing. The public hearing is to receive citizen input on amendments to ordinance number 237, Agricultural Commission. Ms. Senert, if you could please read the public notice.
To be published in the Journal Enquirer, March 7th, 2025, legal ad, Town of South Windsor. Be it resolved that the South Windsor Town Council hereby sets Monday, March 17th, 2025, at 8 p.m. in the council chambers of the South Windsor Town Hall, 1540 Sullivan Avenue, South Windsor, Connecticut, as the time and place for a public hearing to receive citizen input on the amendments to ordinance number 237, Agricultural Commission, attached as Exhibit A, dated at South Windsor, Connecticut, this 5th day of March, 2025, attested to by Catherine Senert, Executive Assistant.
Is there anyone from the public who'd like to speak during the public hearing for amendments to ordinance numbers 237? Mr. Kennedy.
Hi, Joe Kennedy, 81 Allison Drive. I'm also the chair of the Agricultural Commission. Basically, the change to this ordinance would allow the commission to have a quorum from, which is 7, it'll be going down to 4. And it also allows when we place someone, I mean, we have 5 farmers on the commission right now, but in the future, we required to have like a banker, all different specialists, that by getting rid of that, you'll still have dedicated people, you know. It's just looking down the line, it's hard. Right now, if you look at most of the commissions, most of the commissioners are over 60, 85. And I think the average commissioner has been like 10, 15 years. We've got commissioners 30 years plus. And it's tough on the younger people because they have mortgages and they have to take care of the kids. So the seniors are doing a good job. So this would just make it easier for everybody. Thanks.
Thank you, Mr. Kennedy. Is there anyone else would like to come forward and speak on ordinance number 237? Going once. Okay. At this time, I'll close the public hearing and we'll take a straw poll. The straw poll is not a scientific poll, but those all in favor of ordinance 237, please raise your hand. Okay. Opposed? Seeing none, okay. Thank you. We had 1 in favor. We will now resume the regular meeting. And Mr. Maniscalco, I guess you have your department budgets now? Building department? Mr. Melanson, Chief Building Official?
Yep, we're gonna move to the building department first. That would be under tab 1, page 65 in your budget book. We're gonna be skipping the registrar of voters tonight. They were unable to attend, and we're gonna reschedule them for another meeting, just so all of you are aware.
Good evening. My name is Mark Melanson. I'm the Chief Building Official. My proposed budget this year, you have in front of you. I had, basically, the proposals I had made was to put in a part-time inspector because of the amount of work that we're proposing to get, and also try to catch up with everything going on. As you know, we've been extremely busy with new developments, new commercial buildings, new residences, and everything going on. I understood that it was cut, and we could survive on that, but it's going to make the contractors basically wait a little longer for inspections, and it's just going to back things up, I feel. Other than that, basically my budget stayed the same. I reduced one of the operating materials was some inspection software that we had gotten last year, and my inspectors, they're not happy with the way it's working. So we're going to stick with the way we were doing it before, which is basically they do the input when they get back in the office. And as long as we have cell service, which we're supposedly getting new towers and everything, we can get all the information just on our iPads out in the field anyway. So to us, it wasn't worth the money that we were spending on it. Other than that, basically my budget stayed the same except for just the salary increases for union contracts and stuff like that.
Any questions for Mr. Melanson? Counselor Carey?
Hi, when you were proposing a part-time person, what was that, what did that amount to in terms of dollars?
I had put in approximately 42,000 for the part-timer.
And was that a seasonal position, i.e. like, you have more building going on when the ground isn't frozen and, people can work and you can pour concrete without problems? Or was that for the 52 weeks?
Well, it would be nice to go seasonal because during the winter, we're not quite as busy. But yet in the summer, with people taking vacations, everything else, and, that's usually the busiest time of the year. Starts probably the end of February till July or August. Then after that, it kind of slows down a little bit. But it'd be a position that I'd hope we'd be able to adjust the hours so that if it comes busy, we can get somebody in. If not, there's a lot of inspectors out there that are looking for part-time work. In the summer, in the winter, they like going to Florida or somewhere else where it's warmer, but yet in the summer, they're willing to work 15, 20, 25 hours a week.
And if I was going to ask you if you had a key metric that you could measure your department by year over year, could you tell me what that might be?
As far as the number of inspections have been growing, where the revenue, the number of permits that are coming in have been growing also. We're still dealing a lot with the crumbling foundations, which we don't get any revenue in at all for that. So it's just, it just seems to be growing, not reducing any. The inspections are, the state laws are getting tougher and tougher, so we're going out more and more on inspections and more, and we're finding more contractors not calling for inspections, so we're trying to go after them. I know I have one contractor that's got over 150 permits that he has never closed out. And so I'm going to Consumer Protection to give us a hand to try to get him to close out his permits, or else they'll go put something on his license.
Okay. Thank you.
You're welcome.
Counselor King?
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Appreciate you. So I'm looking at the department request, $50,000 for part-time wages. So are you suggesting, how much more would it be if you had a full-timer?
Probably another, well, I don't know with the insurance. Once you get more, you're going to talk the insurance, everything.
Right.
I'm not sure about that, but the salary itself would almost be another 40 just for the salary.
Okay.
And then all the benefits and everything else. That's why we're trying to keep it part-time.
Right.
And if anything else, I'd even 2 part-timers instead of full-time to try to keep it down.
And so how would you put that out there? So say you got this and congratulations, you get your money. How would you put that on the street?
I would, we do
so a better question would be, how do you guarantee that you would fill these positions?
You can never guarantee you fill them, especially nowadays, but we'd be putting it out as a part-time position, so much an hour, and try to work it so that some of these people that are ready to retire and go part-time are looking for, because are looking for positions. I've talked to a lot of people that they're ready to retire, but they don't want to retire completely, so what they're looking at is part-time work. because then they can collect their social security or their pension and then still keep their hands in it, which they like to do.
So you're saying you do have the networking, if you receive this funding, to say, hey, guys, it's over?
I've already had 3 inspectors ask me about it.
Thanks, sir.
You're welcome.
Any other questions? Seeing none? Thank you, Mr. Melanson.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, up next is Park and Recreation. Molly Keys, Director of Park and Rec.
Park and Recreation is on tab number 4, page 170. And if it's helpful.
So we'll make sure that Mr. Roberts takes care of that with the microphone.
I know, I'm trying not to blow out anyone's eardrum. All right, good evening, everyone. My name is Molly Keys. I'm the Director of Parks and Recreation. So joining with me tonight, I do have my Assistant Director, Nathan Foley, here, as well as my Parks Superintendent, Dave Turkington. I'm going to be presenting on the administrative budget, the special revenue, and then I'm going to have Dave come up here and speak on behalf of the park budget. So to kick it off, I really just want to take a moment to acknowledge our team in both the park and the recreation divisions. They truly embody our mission to enhance our community through quality recreation programs and parks to provide exceptional experiences. They work tirelessly. You know, we have the daytime hours for the office, but we also have evenings, weekends, and holidays, really just to ensure that our programs and facilities and services remain high quality for our community. So for tonight, to discuss the administrative budget, I believe that's the first piece on there. So for the administrative budget, we adhered to the town's budget goals and directives, coming in at $429 under the current fiscal year's budget. That is a proposed budget of $767,283. So that budget funds our administrative full-time staff, which then oversee $3.4 million in programs and services. So this is a segment in the recreation division that is tax-based within the general fund. So to meet the town's directive, we offset contractual obligations by temporarily relocating $35,000 from the customer service clerk position into the special revenue fund. This is going to be the second year that we are doing this. Additionally, we have reduced and eliminated majority of our professional development and membership expenses out of the administrative account. So the biggest non-salary expense remaining is the $28,360 lease for storage on Edwin Road. And I just want to put on record, while these adjustments help balance the budget in the short term, shifting salaries and professional development costs into the special revenue fund is not necessarily the most sustainable long-term practice. I say this often when I present, that the special revenue fund was designed for the purpose of us to operate independently, relying on user fees, donations, and sponsorships. So it's really important to maintain a healthy special revenue fund, because you have to be able to support certain sub-accounts such as special events, social, cultural, and we also want a contingency just in case there might be a bad summer when there's a lot of rain and VMP doesn't make a ton, or the year that it flooded and we had to, reimburse folks for their membership, or if something breaks that we don't account for. So that's kind of my piece on that, just to put that on the record. But overall, I think that's the biggest piece. The administrative budget's pretty much salaries. So I'll take any questions for admin before I chat about special revenue.
Councilor Pendleton?
Thank you, Ms. Keys, for what you do. The customer service clerk, that's an employee of our community, yes, of our town? Yeah?
Correct, yep.
Okay. And they go by that personnel handbook and all that stuff, right? They don't get paid. They get paid by the town taxes, not by the special revenue fund. But what you're doing, what I'm understanding, is that you're taking their salary and taking it out of the special revenue fund? Is that what you're saying?
A portion of the salary, correct. That's what we've done for the last 2 years.
That's been a regular practice to pay for certain positions through Park and Rec out of the special revenue fund.
I didn't know the special revenue fund was to help pay salaries when we're supposed to offset the salaries of our employees. And it
It pays for the salaries of camp staff, it pays for the salaries of some of the park staff.
right?
So in the special revenue fund, we do cover like all of our non-full-time staff. So all camp, all VMP, weeknight, weekend supervisors, sports, any other coordinator positions that we kind of have, 4th hour, preschool.
So putting that back in would increase your budget request? I mean, you're decreasing it by $429. What would be the financial impact to put it back into the taxes as opposed to the special revenue fund? Or a division of it or something, because
Yeah, I mean, it would increase our request to the town by $35,000. So we wouldn't hit that 0% that was requested.
And this position's been in place for how long?
Since before I've been here.
Okay.
We originally developed it, so we used to have only a few people in the front office. We originally developed it because we've been growing so much that we need additional staff.
To see your budget go down $429 is just a little concerning to me, but to hear how it's happening is even more concerning to me. I don't like the smoke and mirror show. I don't. I like to be straight up paired salaries the way they're supposed to be paid, and I don't like the transfer of funds coming out of different funding places. And the special revenue fund is the monies that are collected from the participants in our programs, is it not?
Correct.
Okay. I don't like the smoke and mirror show thing. For $429, but it's $35,000 is what you're saying. But because of that, it's reducing you $429. Just my opinion. Thank you.
Counselor King?
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Just a couple of quick ones. I'm looking at page 172 for the counselors, where it goes from office supplies, because that's all part of what we're talking about right now, from where you had actual to now 0. So we don't have any more office supplies. Your fees and memberships went from $400 to $700 to $1,500.
So we made the choice again. We were following the guidelines from what the town had given us. We had built into the special revenue fund to make sure that we can operate, essentially. So, like, for example, I believe heavily in professional development. I'm not going to cut that from my staff because we want to retain our staff. We want them to be better, be motivated.
Agreed.
So we just are able to build that into essentially their programs, into like their budget sheets. And then also we've been highly encouraging for people to get scholarships. So for example, like the National Park and Rec Conference, the last 2 years I've gotten full scholarships. I've been speaking at the conference just to offset like that cost. I've been encouraging my staff to do that as well, so that way they can still attend those conferences. At the Connecticut conference, we're going to highly recommend, again, that they speak or they volunteer to get some money off so they can still attend those. So we're trying to find ways to save money, but also ensure that they get those professional development. Because I do want my staff to be top performing in not only the state, but in New England and in the country,
So, okay, thank you. So is that why the recruitment and training went from 4,800 to 0?
Correct.
So essentially, all right, so.
So we built it into our operating budget, essentially, into the special revenue fund. So it's similar, like when we have, for example, like VMP staff training or 4th hour staff training or camp staff training, like we always have professional development.
Right.
So we just split it out among the accounts to ensure that our staff are getting that training that they need. Because my full-time staff are just as important as our part-time and seasonal staff because they drive those operations.
And I get that, and I'm definitely not meaning to cut you off at all. I just want to make sure that I'm understanding the fact that, so we're taking what you need to 0. Okay, granted, we don't want to raise taxes, got you. But what you do for our town, if they're not developed, then we lose out on that end. Is that, I mean, please, you can explain to me like I'm a 2-year-old. That's fine, because a lot of our town, from that standpoint, needs to understand that this is what happens when you want, but you don't want to put the finances in place for what you actually need.
Yeah, I mean, I'll be transparent, like, we can
There we
fund it,
go.
we
My
can
girl.
fund it in the upcoming years, right? Because again, we are doing scholarships, we are making sure that they're volunteering during the conferences and events to take off some money for it. And we are able to cover it right now in the special revenue fund, long-term. No, I mean, you can't do it, and that's the reality of it, but I know that our department values professional development. I know the other departments do as well. And that's a part of it, though. When you cut budgets, you have to pick and choose, right? What you keep in there.
Okay, so we just have to essentially, I'm a 2-year-old on this. We just have to make sure that we don't have anything dramatic, like say, I don't know, fires that happen on the side of the highway out of nowhere. Something that's never happened in our generation, that's happening now all the time. We just need to make sure that that doesn't happen, because if it does, then that's going to impact your special revenue fund, because you don't have anything there because you moved it to pay for somebody to do something else that should have come out of the tax money. Okay. Thank you, Ms. Keys.
Counselor Carey?
Hi, how are you doing? Can you define the special revenue fund? And then, so I know that you have programs. I'm going to use the 4th R as one. And we've had these conversations in the past, so just to be totally transparent. So like the 4th R is meant to be a totally sustainable program by itself. It's not, should not be coming from taxpayer dollars, okay? As opposed to like your yoga program that, you know, that is part of the coming out of the budget. So there are some things, I think that they fall into the 4th R I know is totally just by itself, the nursery school program, and then I don't know how summer camp falls into there, but they're programs that are not necessarily funded from taxes. They're meant to be self-sustainable. So when you're talking about the special revenue fund, is that coming from those programs, or is that coming from fees or VMP memberships? And if so, one of the things, like when other areas do permits and everything, we show those as up on the board, right, as income, revenue coming into the town. So, like, how does the special revenue fund differ from, say, the fees collected for building permits?
She's phoning a friend. So basically, at some point historically, and this happened before myself and way before Molly, the community made a decision to create a special revenue fund associated with Parks and Recreation. And they directed fees from 4th R, summer camp, I'm not sure about VMP, pool stuff, does that go in there as well?
Yep.
Correct. So all of those fees all go into that fund, and the intent of that fund is to pay for Parks and Recreation activities and/or uses and/or improvements for whatever it may be. So, for example, if we had enough money in that fund and we wanted to, and with your approval, build some type of a new park or a water or whatever, we could fund that out of the special revenue fund. You also can use it to fund programs out of the special revenue fund. So some certain programs that the Parks and Recreation Department runs don't bring in a fee and are funded from special revenue. So whenever that decision was made, that was the decision to make a special revenue fund for that. In terms of permits and permit fees, those were not, you know, the town hasn't made a decision to put those into a special revenue fund. Those come into the general fund and they're used as a revenue source. to offset the overall budget. But for whatever reason, historically, that decision was made.
So basically, thank you, Mike. So Parks and Recreation, we have had the special revenue fund for over 20 years, right? And that was on the premise that every single thing outside of our administrative budget would essentially rely on user fees, sponsorships, donations to operate. So we have 9 sub-accounts of the special revenue fund, essentially. So we have like camp, 4th R, preschool, you have facilities, you have social cultural, you have indoor, which is indoor programming, outdoor, which is outdoor programming. You have like our rental facilities. So every single thing outside of these full-time salaries are in the special revenue fund. So it's $3.4 million worth of programs and services and rentals. So all of our contracted programs, it's all special revenue fund, whether it's yoga, water aerobics, Chiquito, whether it's our basketball league, whether it's drop-in badminton. So all of this is special revenue fund. 4th R, camp, VMP is all special revenue fund as well. VMP is not, like, it is not supported by town general fund. A lot of pools are in other communities. We are in the special revenue fund. So we rely on those admission fees and the concession revenue, for example, and pool lane rentals to sustain and keep that facility open. And then, like, for example, all of our training, all of our hiring, all of that. Yeah.
You have more?
You know, probably not for this discussion, but it would make sense and probably cause less confusion if we look at how we're doing this. Because the reality is when we're putting in zeros, we're spending money. It's just, it would be like if, you know, the AA department got permit fees and then they put in 0 for their office supplies because they took it from the permit fees. So we might want to look at this sometime so that when you look at the budget, you're taking into all of the funds, not just what's coming from the budget dollars, but if there's 3.4 million coming in a year from the programs, you know, but not for this discussion.
Under
probably.
tab 10, you have the special revenue funds
Okay.
that outline all those things. So it is there.
Counselor Lewis?
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Thanks, Molly. You know, this has been going on for a long time. For other councils, while you were mayor and while you were deputy mayor, Mr. King. This has been happening for a long time, and the general feeling from the Parks and Rec Department back when Mr. Favreau was head of it is that his task was to try and make Parks and Rec self-sustaining. But you can't raise the fees that high, and you can't cover the salaries. So there's no smoke and mirrors here. I think it would be a good idea, as Councilor Kerry had suggested, is to have items in there so you know what they cost, and we still know that the special revenue fund is covering them, but that's what the special revenue fund is to do, is to lower the operating cost of Parks and Rec. And that's how it's been for a long time. Thanks.
Counselor Fitzgerald?
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Thanks very much, Molly. I'm just curious are there things that that are not going to get funded by using part of the special revenue fund to pay for your regular administrative salary portion? Is there like something that you're not going to be able to do because you have to use money to pay for that expense, or?
Not necessarily this year. Again, it's having that contingency is really important. I think when it comes down to it long term is just making sure that we're very careful with what we do for it, because again, if something does come up, we would go to the council to say like, hey, we need to use $20,000 for this project. It was not planned for, you know, it was not a part of our budget to maintain this piece that somehow broke, or, you know, yeah, I mean, it's just naturally, we have a lot of acres of open space, we have a lot of parks, we have a lot of facilities. We've done a really great job at coming forth with new programs and keeping up with our facilities, but things are aging, so, you know, realistically, having that contingency is so important. And during COVID, our special revenue fund depleted, much like a lot of other places, and the department's done a really great job at being fiscally responsible and building that back up. So we just want to be aware of it and just making sure that we remain with that safe contingency.
Cool, thank you.
Counselor Pendleton?
Thank you. I'd just like to ask for some clarification. Counselor Lewis, you said that this has been going on for a long time. I'm not sure what you're referring to, but this salary is being paid out of special revenue fund for the last 2 years, last year and this year. Is that correct, Mr. Maniscalco? It has never happened before, to make that clear. No. Well, you're right. You're right. So when did it happen, Mr. Maniscalco?
We started, I believe we shifted some of the salary last year into the special revenue fund. as
Last
well.
year?
Correct.
Okay. And then this year's request?
Correct.
Okay. So it hasn't happened before? Okay, just wanted to make that clear. Because I know we didn't touch salaries out of special revenue fund. I also understand that the clerk, the customer service clerk, helps the folks that utilize the programs at the Park and Rec Department. And they need the assistance from that person. I understand that. I don't utilize Park and Rec. I wouldn't call up there and ask for customer service help. Should it come out of special revenue for the folks that are doing the programs? Maybe. I don't know. Because it's a specialized helping system for that specialized Park and Rec stuff you do? I don't know. I'm trying to rationalize it in my head. So I'm trying to be easy on the salary going over there to special revenue. Sure, maybe.
I will put on record, they have, in the past, like 5-ish years, they've taken money out of the special revenue fund for salaries. It's not like a completely brand-new concept.
I see, thank you.
Yes, I think this amount is a little bit larger since I've been here, like the last couple years, but customer service clerk is similar to any other front-facing employee, like that works in town hall as well.
Correct.
Right, so, yeah.
More of a
Similar position.
specialty, though, for the folks that are utilizing.
Correct,
the
it's
park.
recreation-based,
Right,
yep.
right,
Yep,
recreation-based.
she's like the frontline person. Yeah.
And you do use some of your funding for capital? If you had capital projects, you would have some funding for that, or no?
I mean,
If you had a contingency, if you had something?
yes, like if there was a project and we had a contingency, we would talk to the Park and Rec Commission and discuss if that's how we would use the funds, yeah.
Okay. All right, thank you.
Okay, moving on to, I guess, the next part of your
Yeah,
presentation.
can I, special revenue? Special revenue fund? Yeah, okay. Then we'll go to Parks last. Cool. Yeah, so we're gonna go with the special revenue fund. We're gonna chat about that. I don't know where it is in your budget books.
Starts on page 5. Yeah, page 5 under tab 10.
So again, for the special revenue fund, the 9 self-sustaining divisions, they're not tax subsidized, relying solely on user fees, sponsorships, and donations. So it was established back in 2000, so 25 years old. And yeah, so the special revenue fund was designed essentially for us again to be programmatically independent. So I'll reiterate the 9 accounts again. So contracted, preschool, day camp, 4th R, VMP, outdoor recreation, indoor recreation, social, cultural, and facilities. This year we are at a $3,412,231 budget, which is a $39,887 increase. Our primary goal among all of the special revenue fund, the rec department, is to provide affordable, high quality, and self-sustaining programs. However, rising costs particularly, we all know that everything's going up, right? Operating materials, things of that nature. But for us, as Mike had alluded to earlier in his presentation, we are a people-driven organization. So our main drivers for increasing our budget is really down to our staff, right? Because we hire nearly 200 seasonal part-time staff, and we have to adhere to the Connecticut minimum wage increase, which now is at $16.35. And then we also have the CT paid sick leave, which does add significantly into our budgets, because a lot of our staff, because they love the department, they love working for us, they work for us after school, and they come do camp and VMP or special events. So we do the CT paid sick leave because they qualify for it. So those are really the two biggest drivers. I mean, there's obviously increases, again, in operation materials, buses for field trips, field trip locations, basketballs go up, everything's going up. So to sustain these programs without compromising the quality, we've done some modest fee adjustments, just obviously making sure that we are still being affordable for our community. So these increases are really going to ensure that we're offering those valuable services while remaining affordable, and we're going to kind of continue to assess our programs and our offerings and our fees each year in order to, again, remain self-sustaining. Yeah, so that's the special revenue fund.
Counselor Pendle?
Do you have a specific on the 37,000 decrease? Did you state that already? Was I not listening?
Sorry, what did you say? I apologize.
Oh, that's the contracted services. You're $37,000 less this year than prior year?
Oh, and contracted services, yeah, that is just due to just removal and switching around some of our contracted programs. And then also, like, if you think about it, last year we had iCode and a few other things that no longer exist or out of business.
So each category, each of the 9 has a decrease or increase. Do you have an increase in anything?
There should be increases in some of the accounts. Like I think, for example, indoor, we had a slight increase. Facilities, there's a slight increase.
Got it.
Fourth R, there's an
4th R
expense
is an
increase.
increase,
Yeah.
yeah.
And again, like those are drivers. Camp has a slight increase due to staffing.
This isn't our financial taxes, monies that go into, this is just you explaining special revenue. This isn't us, this isn't, thank you.
Okay, no additional,
I'm
Counselor
sorry,
King?
I thought it was. The only question I had is in regards to where does the money come from? Say, for example, if you have a family that can't afford.
So we do budget for financial assistance, and then we work closely with Human Services as well to subsidize some of that. So we have a decent partnership with them. So if we get a family, we try to figure out, say they want a couple weeks of camp. We do have money set aside for that, and we actually, we'll have spaces allocated for financial assistance within all of our programs.
So is that actually budgeted here, or is that budgeted on the human services side?
Both. Like they have a bucket of money, and then we have our buckets of money.
Okay.
Okay.
I'm sorry. Sorry, Madam Mayor.
Sorry, I didn't see your light.
That's okay.
Counselor Fitzgerald.
Thank you. I was just curious on the day camp, has the enrollment gone down or up?
Well, we're full, right? So, we're not full yet for this year, so I don't want anyone to panic that might be listening. Our camp registration's next Wednesday, but it has not gone down, no. We've actually brought back one of our camps last year and maximize what we could do in that space just to accommodate, 100 more campers. So we'll always have a wait list, essentially, right, with what we can do with our space and our staff.
Yeah. Oh, I remember fondly getting up very early in the morning to camp out outside the rec department. But, but it looks like you're down like 7 counselors and 2 camp directors from just 2 years ago. So are the programs maxed out but smaller than they were before, or?
There's also just restructuring and how we're staffing our camp programs. But yeah, so we had like several camps, like they had like junior adventurers, before adventurers, things of that nature. And some of those camps don't necessarily fit those needs anymore, so we've shifted around numbers for the different programs. But then also like we've restructured so we have more inclusion staff, for example, because that's a need.
Okay, thanks.
Counselor Lewis?
Thank you, Madam Mayor. What difference would it make if there are improvements to your building for your capacity to do more and to increase your special funds?
Well, if you enhance the building, then we'll be able to offer more recreation programs. But I mean, again, like for example, the elevator will allow us to use a whole other floor of programming. We were just talking about that today. But then again, we need to find storage space, so it's a counter effect there. But yeah, I mean, obviously, we've spoken about this in other meetings. A new building is needed, or at least to enhance the building, we should say, just to make sure that we're providing those spaces that are reflective of the recreation needs in the community, especially gym space, more rooms. It's a need. Yeah.
Okay.
Cool. Awesome. Well, I'm going to invite David Turkington, our parks superintendent, up to talk on the parks budget. Thank you.
Thank you, Molly.
The Parks Division page is page 176, I'm sorry. Under tab number 4.
Good evening. Happy St. Patrick's Day. As mentioned, I am Dave Turkington, Superintendent of Parks. Per request this year, we came in at or just below a 0. Contractual obligations and the rise in utility costs are 2 biggest factors that have affected our budget. To cover these costs, we had to make the unfortunate cuts to summer help and to our gardener position. Another necessary cut was to reduce our department's 442 budget, which is the equipment budget. This has cut our equipment budget to 2/3 less than it was back in 2022-23. Under these current budget constraints, we'd like to try to continue with our employee plus equipment equals efficiency initiative. To do this, we have elected to lease some equipment. The machines that we're looking to replace this year have gone past their cost-effective life expectancy and are currently costing fleet services more than expected. I am open to any questions or concerns that you guys have.
Councilor King?
Thank you, Madam Mayor. The groundskeeper that you eliminated does what exactly?
So that position, they maintain all the garden beds around town. They have some weekly duties as well. On Wednesdays, they take care of the bar park bags and barrels. You know, make sure that the dog waste receptacles are taken care of. They also go around to the Boundless Playground and make sure everything's picked up and is safe over there.
And the summer help positions that you had to cut, what do those consist of?
They basically are an assistance to our trim mow division, and they assist in trim mowing throughout the summertime.
Thank you. Wait a minute. Didn't you guys just, aren't we supposed to be going to some disc thing that opened up? Some disc park? Didn't y'all just do that?
It's opening up April
Yes.
12th, yeah.
So who's gonna take care of that?
It's gonna be picked
Nobody.
up. it's gonna be picked up with a full-time position, maintaining all that.
So we're open, okay, okay, all right.
Any other questions for Mr. Turkington? Pause. Counselor Pendleton.
Thank you. I'm just trying to read this, get caught up here. There was a reduction, how many positions?
3 positions, 2 summer help and 1 part-time gardener.
Is this your first time presenting a budget to us?
Yes.
I believe so. I want to say, great job. Because I didn't think you were here last year, and I want to say, great job.
Yep.
It's nerve-wracking, I know. Don't be nervous, it's okay. Weren't you just here last year asking for a position?
Yes,
And
we were.
okay, so last year we needed somebody, this year we don't need 3. Can you tell us how our town got smaller or something?
No,
Or
it hasn't.
less work for the employees?
Certainly hasn't.
How does that make any sense? And I'm not looking for an answer. In my little brain, I'm just saying, how does that make sense? How many positions did you ask for last year?
I believe 1 position,
1?
yes.
Did you get it?
We ended up, it was actually a promotional opportunity.
Right.
That's what we ended up doing.
It was like the maintainer 1, 2, or 3, and they were moved up and moved up and moved up. Okay. Wow. So we're letting people go
Yes,
to get a 0 budget?
yes.
More smoke and mirrors. Thank you so much.
You're letting people go or just not filling open positions?
We had to make the unfortunate cuts at this time.
Okay.
Does that equate to letting people go?
Yes.
Thank you.
Counselor Carey.
Hi, how are you doing? When I'm looking at the Park Division position summary schedule, where do I see the reduction in staff?
Under temporary seasonal help and part-time wages.
You passed it. Go back.
178, right?
Go back. One
Yeah,
more.
178.
Nope, there you go, where the pie chart is.
Okay, so that's not the head count, right? That's the dollars. But on page 175 are the number of positions for 23, 24, and then 24, 25, and then 25, 26. And those numbers look very consistent. It had 24, 25 had 2 summer staff, and 25, 26 is showing 2. So are you saying they went away?
That must be an oversight, yes.
Oh, okay, okay.
They say.
Yes.
Fire, people getting tried and fired.
Guess what?
That does not exist, correct.
Okay, so those 2 positions are gone? Okay,
That 2 should be a 0.
okay. And that was summer staff, so that's not, that was part-time staff?
Correct.
Thank you.
Yes.
I'm sorry, what was the 3rd position? Because you said there's 3. I'm sorry, I didn't mean to steal the floor. I just wanted to finish that question.
The grounds.
2 summer help
Yep.
and a part-time gardener.
And that, on page 175, where does that fall?
Would that be the groundskeeper?
That would be groundskeeper, correct.
So that should be a 0
Yes.
and not a 1.
Yes.
Okay. Okay, thank you.
Yep, no problem.
Counselor Fitzgerald.
Hi, I just had a quick question.
Yes.
So I noticed on the expenditure summary that the overtime amount has gone up? Is that because you had to cut positions? So are we paying more in overtime because we cut positions?
Can you repeat that again, please?
On page 178,
Okay.
there's, I mean, it's not a huge amount, but looks like, you know, a little over 2,100, yeah. For overtime.
Yeah.
That's
That is
that's
due
over-
to
that's
salaries going
overtime.
up.
It's
We
overtime.
had to
Okay.
make that change.
Okay, so it's not because you're losing positions?
No.
Okay. All right, thank you.
Counselor Carey?
Oh, I'm sorry.
Counselor Lewis?
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Do you believe that you have the sufficient staff to get the job done that needs to get done? So do you have the staff to cover these services at this time?
Yes, we currently do. It's difficult to manage, but yes, I think we're okay at this point. We have the potential to the addition of Rice Street Park. We have the new disc golf course that we just brought online this year. In time, we're going to need some additional help. We certainly are. You know, with the not having summer help and cutting the seasonal position, we're going to be all hands on deck.
Perhaps we could find some local people to volunteer and help with the gardening.
Can't do
Be little projects that groups the garden club can take a garden or something.
Yes, we have the Down to Earth Garden Club, which is a great asset in town. They do wonderful work for us at the Boundless Playground in Neversburg. So,
Thank you.
I'd like to thank them.
Counselor Pendleton?
So total staff presently, you have what?
12.
12?
Yes.
And 3 part-timers are being eliminated?
That doesn't include the part-time. We have 12 full-time positions.
That does not include part-time positions?
No.
Okay. So you would have 15 because you would have 12 full-time and 3 part-time? And what happens when you have folks out on workers' comp? When you have 12 employees? What do you do? And how many do you have out on workers' comp right now?
We currently have 1 out on workers' comp and 2 others out, or 3 others out on injuries.
Injuries. So that's 12 minus 4? Simple math, right?
Yep.
Gets us down to 8. It is springtime. Okay. Concerning. Thank you.
Counselor Balboni?
We keep saying 3 employees, but looking at that, it's basically summer help and therefore a total of 0.96 FTEs, correct? So less than 1 person in essence?
Yes.
Thank you.
Okay, seeing nothing further. Thank you, Mr.
Thank you.
Turkington. Are we done with Park and Rec, Mr. Maniscalco?
I believe we are now done with Park and Rec. We're moving on to planning, the planning department, and that is tab 1, page 58.
Good evening. Michelle Light, Director of Planning. It's a pleasure to be here with you on St. Patrick's Day. My budget tonight is a very minor change, mainly due to contractual obligations of salaries. I think you'll see the other adjustments are some shifting of some monies from the professional account into our training and fees and memberships accounts. As many are aware that we did pick up a planner. So actually I have 2 new planners in my office. Environmental planner replaced Jeff Folger, Autumn Burke. It started about 10 months ago, or I lose track of time. And Justin Russo is an assistant planner. He's been here about a year. So we have nice, young, vital staff going. upstairs, but we have a lot of training needs. So that's where some of the shifting of the budget is towards getting the appropriate training that we do need. The other training I am looking to get to is for zoning enforcement. Towns are required to have zoning enforcement officers. Pam Olive has been with us for many years. As it's no secret, Pam and I are both getting on in age, so I want to make sure the town is set up properly to have a zoning enforcement officer into the future. So we'll be doing some training along those lines too. Other than that, the budget's pretty status quo. Be glad to answer any questions anybody has.
When you say training for the zoning enforcement, are you training your current staff?
Yeah, I have the.
Like
I'm
the
gonna have
environmental planner? and-
Yeah, not that I would, the assistant planner will get trained, not that I would imagine him filling that position, but we certainly don't want to be without someone that has the capability to do the enforcement. So it's just really more to get another person on staff trained in the enforcement arena.
Okay,
It's also a really great background for any young planner to learn the zoning enforcement, because that's really, where all the laws come from for our planning.
okay, great, thank you. Counselor Carey?
Hey, Michelle. With all of the economic development that you see coming down the pike, how are you feeling about, your staff and having enough people to handle what's coming?
I think staffing numbers-wise, I think we're in good shape. I think, we're having two young planners, you have some inexperience, right? So I think that's probably where, the department needs to grow the most. But experience comes with time. And, we have enough interesting projects out there, and we have enough, I think, higher-level managers to help some of our younger managers that it's a good time right now to be training folks, to keep our department sustainable into the future.
Thank you.
Counselor Pendleton?
I just want to say thank you. I have no comments, no questions. Just thank you to you and your staff for what you do for our community and all the development that goes on here and all those extra meetings you go to. Appreciate you.
Thank you.
Counselor Balboni?
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I'm not even really sure why this jumped out at me, but it looks like you requested $357,855 for full-time salaries, and somehow the town manager is able to cut that by $4,000. What would that have been?
Say that again.
The department requested $357,855 for full-time salaries.
Longevity, maybe?
The town manager proposed is $353,000.
I think it might be a longevity fee, or longevity gets put in there. I don't really.
I think it was if I remember correctly, I might have to go look it up, but I think it was a longevity payment that had been left over from the previous employee that was there that new employees are no longer eligible for.
You actually, I do know what it's for. We do have a $4,000 stipend for one of our employees when they get their soil scientist training. So it's put in there in the event they got their training certificate
right.
over the next year. I don't know that she'll achieve that or not, but that's what it's for. It's coming back to me now.
Page 63.
So we put it in the event she were to receive the training. Probably unlikely.
So, Mr. Maniscalco, you have no faith that she will achieve this? Is
I
that why
think
you
we
cut it?
talked about the length of the class.
It is a
longer than-
lengthy period of time to get it. The scenario could be, let's say for some reason this person left, not that I think she's going to, and someone else were to come in and be hired with that certificate, we'd want to be able to have that salary. So again, when you become a soil scientist, that's what it is for. It's for that certificate.
Understood.
The length, just to make sure everybody's clear, the length of the class and the time it would take is longer than the budget period that we're budgeting for, if that makes sense.
Makes a lot of sense. Thank you.
Yep.
Anyone else have questions? Thank you, Michelle. That was nice.
Thank you.
Thank you. And
I
Public
believe
Works?
last we have Public Works, which is tab 3.
Mr. Stetson.
Good evening, everybody. Happy St. Patrick's Day, Madam Mayor and fellow councilors. I'm Vincent Stetson, Director of Public Works. Here for a bit of a preamble to the Department of Public Works budget presentation. Over the past 5 years, the Public Works Department has essentially held a flat budget, with very small increases or decreases over all the department's budgets at the request of leadership in an effort to keep our increases only to what is absolutely needed, along with the directive of no new staff additions. We have been instructed to find efficiencies and savings, and we have, as it has been and always will be our charge to find efficiencies and savings. It is by definition what we do day to day. But it has come to the point that I would be doing all of you a disservice if I did not forewarn you all that we have limited the budget to the point that we are impacting services. We are creating an environment that we are no longer working as effectively as we can, and will be making financial decisions that are counter to efficiency and savings. For instance, the milling and filling program are no longer able to tackle all the trouble areas of potholes in town. We are slowly eroding away at our resiliency and redundancy. We have frontline trucks that are over 20 years old enough for antique plates, for equipment that is well beyond, and now we're looking at putting today's dollars into these old vehicles, which is contrary again to working efficiently, for equipment that is well beyond its intended life cycle. You may not be aware, but every snowstorm we have trucks break down due to the nature of our business, and not following our amortization schedule and cutting our maintenance and capital budgets only increases future budget requests along with our exposure to operational failure, which we would define as not having enough trucks running during an emergency event to timely and effectively manage the emergency. Today's budget has no room for inflationary impacts, tariffs or otherwise. In essence, it is a step in the wrong direction, and we're at the point where we may not be able to afford to provide the services that the town is accustomed to. Before making any additional cuts to materials or equipment, it may be the unfortunate time to take a look at cutting services in an effort to balance the budget. I have a very talented group coming up behind me, and it's important to note here that South Windsor is fortunate to have a dedicated and talented staff. Balancing the streets budget, not only do we have a seasoned construction management professional, Marco Mucciacciaro, Street Services Superintendent, but he is also a cost accountant with a degree in accounting. In addition to Marco's accounting prowess at the town garage, we also have Chuck Marshall, who is a brilliant mechanic with a lifetime of experience in the trucking, heavy mechanical, and construction industry. The town would not be able to tackle a fraction of the Frankenstein-like body cab transplants projects or custom fabrication work without Chuck on the team guiding the projects and finding value and efficiencies, while also leveraging his vast network of connections for the town's benefit that he has made through his storied career. This evening, we will also have Kevin Vincennes, one of our rising stars of Public Works, presenting and answering questions for the engineering department, while our town engineer, Jeff Doolittle, is on vacation, who I may add, is retiring this June after nearly 24 years with the town. I would also be remiss if I did not highlight the excellence of Superintendent of Pollution Control and Refuse and Recycling, Tony Manfrey. Mr. Manfrey has been integral in securing our very competitive hauling rates and is tirelessly working on keeping the plant as up to date as possible while also balancing sewer rates and fees. Above all, I'd like to thank and recognize Mr. Clay Major, who is constantly juggling contracts and agreements to keep his budget as stable as possible, while also creating and caring for one of the best towns to work for in the area. I'd like to thank all of them for their efforts over the years keeping these budgets steady and looking around the curve for savings. I'd like to leave all the specific questions to the team, and I will stand back here to catch any missed balls.
All right, good evening. Marco Mucciacciaro, Superintendent of Streets. As Vincent kind of laid out, streets budget has, we tried to follow the request to keep our budget without an increase. We were able to do that while absorbing contractual raises within the remainder of our budget. It doesn't come without some concern, as everybody has seen at home. there's inflationary increases out there. We see that every day in the products that we purchase. There is a 10% increase in precast products this year, just singling out one item in particular, but it's everything. But we are doing what we can, trying to save where we can and being at the forefront of what we do and trying to come up with new ideas of how to save money and try to offset those costs. But at some point, I do believe that that's going to become difficult. We also have a big player in our budget is Mother Nature. I can't tell you what Mother Nature is going to bring us this year, if we're going to get a hurricane, or how many snowstorms we'll get. All I can do is calculate an average and try to figure out from there. But we do have a tight budget, and it doesn't give us a lot of room for the peaks or the unexpected. But I guess at this point, do you have any questions?
Yeah, my first question is your road surface treatment miles. Right now you got 12, previous year was 17.7. Is that, when you say treatment, is that paving or?
That's chip seal, crack seal, so that's that type of treatment.
So you're reducing it by 5 miles?
It's important to note that that is funded through Town Road 8. We take the funds allocated, it's about $330,000 a year, and that funds those programs. That does not come out of the operating budget.
Okay. Thank you. Councilor Carey.
Okay, so your budget is 192,000 less than last year? What drove that?
I believe that's the change from outright purchase of a dump truck to a lease.
But was the dump truck in last year's budget?
We did purchase a dump truck last year. We need to purchase a minimum of 1 truck a year, and we're falling behind even doing so at that point. So yes, there is another dump truck in this year's budget as well.
Okay, and you're leasing it instead of buying it?
Yes.
How long's the lease for?
That's in my proposal. I think, what were we looking at?
It was 5 years.
That was what I was going to say, it's 5.
Thank you.
And that'd be a municipal lease to own, not like a car lease everybody has. So at the end of it, we would own it.
The lease to purchase, okay.
Thank you.
You all set? Okay. Are you all set, Councilor King? Councilor Pendleton?
Thank you. Well, you know, my big question every year, right? What's my big question every year before the bad weather comes? There you go. Bingo. The salt and the brine, whatever we need. I see the number is in here. The number stayed in here. Where do we stand with that? And are we going to be purchasing it over the summer when it goes on sale?
So we purchase it on CROG bid. That CROG bid is actually cheaper during the winter months, believe it or not. But we buy it in the cheapest period, and we will do our best as much as we can, put as much in that shed ahead of next year's season.
Good. And buying it on sale saves us a little bit of money on this budget amount? Buying it on sale. You know what I mean?
Yeah, I mean, so we, like I said, we buy it on the CROG bid. Not sure what that's going to be next year. We don't ever know that until it actually happens. So we'll find that out at some point this summer. And so it's a guesstimate whether the increase. I have a 3% increase in there. It has gone down slightly in the past, but we also have seen it go up 30%.
Right.
So it's,
Can we still get in on the tax, can we still, pardon me, can we still get in on the state when the state does their purchases, or, you know what I'm saying? Because we've done that in the past, have we not?
I'm not sure about getting on the state, but we all get together with all the other municipalities in the CROG bid so we get better buying power.
Okay. Yeah, I wonder if we can get something, figure out what the state's doing.
So, yeah, so the Capital Region Council of Governments works with all the towns to
Right.
bid it out together, and typically we purchase off of that bid.
Okay, all right, thank you.
Counselor Fitzgerald?
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I was just curious about the leaf collection estimate. What makes you think you're going to be collecting less leaves this year? Or next year, I guess?
So we, in terms of collecting leaves, it varies every year, how many leaves are on the trees. We're gonna, we continue.
Does it really?
As crazy as it may be, it does vary year to year. But in terms of what we've already picked up,
I mean, I'm just, because there was a big jump, it looks like, from the 23-24 season to 24-25, and now you're
yes.
thinking it's going to go down.
So some of it we are taking in from other municipalities and getting paid for it. So one of our initiatives is to continue to take in as much revenue from leaf composting. Some of that is from disposal, some of it's from making compost, providing some to residents, and the remaining selling it in bulk. We have been trying to obtain Vernon's leaves for a number of years now. We were successful in many years. This past year, we were not low bidder on it, but we were able to work together with the contractor who was to still get some revenue from the disposal of the leaves, only they were hauling it instead of us contracting out the hauling. So we were still able to recover the majority of the revenue there, and not the expense piece of that, so.
Thank you.
Counselor Carey?
Hi, I apologize, I forgot one of my questions. When you are forecasting for the year, you know, like we've had some light winters, and then we've had some really heavy winters. How do you do that? Like,
In terms of salt, so I take a 5-year average. 5-year average, I added an additional 150 ton. That is just an average. I will say that this year so far, we have exceeded that average. But with any average, you have some highs and you have some lows. So we're hoping that that average continues. It has been trending lower. I mean, we all have seen that we don't get the snow we once did. But what will happen next year, I don't know.
okay, thank you.
Counselor Pendleton?
Thank you. Just going back to the composting for a second. That machine that we purchased years ago is now paid off, correct?
It was paid off as of last fiscal year, yep.
Thank you. Been waiting to hear that for a long time. So that's paid off, that's done, we own it. Now we're still composting, and we do have some for our residents for springtime, correct?
That's correct.
Okay,
Yep.
thank you.
Okay. Any further questions for Marco? Okay. Thank you very
All right,
much.
thank you.
Good evening, everyone. I'm Chuck Marshall, Fleet Manager. I got a small increase to my budget. Mostly it's the offset of the car wash program. Okay, so most of the increase is due to the car wash program. What happened this year is it was broken up into other departments in the past. It has all been moved into fleet services because I was able to get a better value if we bundled everything together. So we saved a few dollars per car across the board, and that's why it's all now in fleet. We have some contractual increases, but pretty much everything else I was able to hold steady. I guess if you have any other questions on any of the other numbers.
When you say the car wash budget, is that including the police department? Because they had their own, they used to go to.
Correct, correct, yep.
Oh, okay.
Yep, that's in this, that's included in this.
Okay, Counselor Lewis?
Thank you, Madam Mayor. So if gas prices go down significantly, you recoup a lot of money, you save a lot of money, correct?
Mm-hmm.
That's all I got, thanks.
Yep.
Counselor Fitzgerald?
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Did you have to cut a mechanic position?
I did not.
Okay, because it looks, on page 155, it looks like you,
We have some, we had someone that left and we have a new hire, so it's just at the current time, we have 2 lead mechanics and we have 2 mechanics that are eligible contractually to move up to equipment mechanics. So that's where the numbers play.
okay.
And that's contractually.
Okay, so the mechanic just moved up to an equipment?
Yes, he has the opportunity, he just has to fulfill his CDL requirement.
Okay, thank you.
Counselor Pendleton?
I'm confused, sorry. Everybody's already asked my questions, thank you. So I see, so all the mechanics have moved up 1. So there was 1 lead mechanic last year, now there's 2. 2 positions for equipment mechanic, which is still gonna be, am I counting right? Oh, 5 last year, 5 this year. Okay, good, just wanted to make sure. Thank you, thank you. And thank you for, the car wash and doing it, that's a good savings right there, because I know the police were trying to work that out. Thank you.
Thank you, Chuck. Okay, who's up next?
Where are we, 144?
Yep, 144.
So, good evening. My name is Kevin Vincennes, civil engineer here in the engineering department. Going to go over the engineering department budget with you guys. So we've had a slight increase, mainly to do with salary increases, but we were able to offset that by decreasing our 442 line item, the equipment budget. So for those of you who don't know, our department's made up, we have 5 full-time staff, and then we hire a seasonal intern in the summer, which is usually a college-age student. It's a mutually beneficial thing. They get to gain a little experience, and we get to get a little work out of them in the meantime. So if anyone has any questions regarding the engineering budget, I'd be more than happy to answer.
Well, I think you got off easy. Not a red light on.
Awesome. Like to hear that. Thank you.
Thank you.
Good evening, Tony Manfrey, Superintendent of Pollution Control. For tonight's refuse and recycling budget, excuse me, a little hoarse. It's a 0.3% increase. That's mainly due to the disposal costs. It's a 2.4% disposal costs, and that's a contractual obligation. This results in a $2.16 increase in tipping fees for the municipal solid waste. I was able to offset that a little bit with decreases in fuel, and also the bulk waste average tonnage has been steadily decreasing the last few years. So this year I was comfortable reducing the budgeted tons. With that said, I can answer any questions you may have.
Counselor Pendleton?
Hi, thank you. Hi, question on the refuge and recycling. With everything that was going on down at Hartford, with all that changeover in the contracts and not doing, where do we stand with that and going? Because I know last year was a little concerning. You had come to us. Where do we stand now with all of that?
So we have a 10-year contract, or we signed a 10-year contract in 2020 with All American Waste for the collection and disposal of waste. That time frame got us outside of the whole Hartford debacle. But in the meantime, they had shut down prior to when they were anticipating. So we're contracted with All American Waste through 2030. And they have different transfer stations in the area that they're able to move the waste around as needed. So we're in pretty good position with our contract with them.
And it's not just, or correct me if I'm wrong, it's not just your curbside pickup. It's also the other items that you do, electronics. Is that?
Those are separate programs that we have. So All American Waste does our curbside collection and disposal of trash and recycling items.
And what about our bulky?
Bulk waste also.
Also?
Yep.
So what I'm trying to get to is you do other programs too, like the electronics or the, right, isn't that?
Yeah, we recently started a composting program. We have a disposal dumpster at the, on Burgess Road at the town garage. That's a relatively new program that we've been promoting. We also do textiles. We have bins at the schools. It's the white bins for textiles, such as your clothing, your footwear, linens, etc. And that stuff can be repurposed or recycled.
What's the bin on Burgess Road you just mentioned?
That's a compost bin, so that's for food waste.
Got it.
And we also do a household hazardous waste with the CREAC group. So that's held in Manchester. We do that 6 times a year. So we do offer that to our residents.
Thank you so much. Appreciate it.
You're welcome.
Counselor King?
Thank you, Madam Mayor. What's going on, man? Long time.
How are you?
Hey, trying to get that beard gang. I see you
Yeah,
got that
forgot
going
to
on.
shave
boy.
yesterday.
Okay. So first of all, shout out to you and your team for the ozone and the smell and stuff that you're doing on Main Street. I know that's a daily grind, so keep up the good work down there. The printing costs, $7 grand. What's that?
So it's more promotional stuff, and that has to do with the compost program that we've been doing, and we're just trying to get more educational materials out there, just to take advantage of that. And so we were starting to push our costs. I think we had 5,000 in there for last year. So we increased that a little bit just for promotional, educational materials.
Okay, seeing no other questions.
All right.
Thank you.
Thank you.
And I think last but not least, Mr. Major?
I believe that's page 159. Page 150, 159.
Good evening, Madam Mayor, members of the council. Clay Major, Director of Facilities. I have both increases and decreases in my budget this year. Overall, I have a 1.3% increase, which equates to $26,000 of increases. I did have to decrease my maintenance contracts account so that I could increase the utilities account. As we all know, utility costs are going up. I did have some increases for Connecticut Water for the splash pad. I also had some Eversource electricity increase costs for 2 air conditioning units that we installed at the town garage that were not previously here before. Also one at the VMP Pavilion, the upper pavilion, which we're now paying for. So those are in those cost increase. Yeah, and I'd be glad to answer any questions that you have at this time.
Any questions or? I know.
Can I just make a comment while you're all thinking? Maybe save a little time here. I do want to reiterate what Vincent Stetson said earlier about what zeros do. Zeros aren't obviously zeros, and we all know that. But for example, just 2 weeks ago, we replaced a large coil in the air handling unit, one of 6 at the library. While they were working on that unit, the unit behind it started making a racket. Well, the bearings and shaft and blower need to be replaced on that unit as well. So I budgeted for some of this stuff, but you need a cushion in your budget to prepare for things that you can't prepare for, right? So in addition to that, now we may have a potential issue at the community center with the cooling tower piping. Unanticipated, couldn't see it coming, but again, we don't have the funds in my budget because we don't have a cushion. So 2 years in a row now we're asked to come in with a zero, and what that does is it puts people like Patty Perry in the finance department in a real pinch because now she's got to try to find this money somewhere, right? And if everybody's at zero and everybody needs something that they didn't think of previously, it really puts her in a tight position. So zero obviously isn't zero. We also have the tariffs that are going to wreak havoc on the future costs of materials in this country. I will also say that about 30 days, less than 30 days ago, probably 2 weeks ago, my HVAC contractor called me and said, look, I don't think I can keep our contract in place. We had a 1-year contract with 4 one-year extensions. And I said, what are you talking about? You're killing me here. My budget's already been submitted to the town manager. I can't do anything with this now. He goes, look, I have to increase at least 12% on my preventive maintenance contract in order to stay with the town. In addition, he's going up because we only have a preventive maintenance contract. We don't have a service contract. Anything service related is additional. And I had negotiated costs with them at about $110 an hour. So he said to me, we're going to go up to $153 an hour. That's a 40% increase. Our contracted service calls typically run us between $30,000 and $40,000 a year. So do the math on 40% of that, in addition to the 12% that they're going to go up on the preventive maintenance side. Now, I mean, I know the rates are very competitive because I talk to people in the industry all the time, roundtable discussion groups, email lists of people I reach out to all the time. So these are the things that are unanticipated. I wouldn't have known he's going to call me and say, look, I want to back out. I don't want to sign. But I said, okay, just give me your number because at this point I don't have enough time to go out to bid, right? So I said, just give me your number. I can now. So that's going to have to come out of my budget that wasn't anticipated for next year already. But because we're zeros 2 years in a row, there's no fluff. There's and fluff isn't geez, it's just spending money to spend. No, this is fluff to me. This is having a contingency in your budget for emergencies that you don't think about, right? That you don't anticipate. That put a real pinch on Patty and her team, and the town manager, of course. So I just wanted to say that and get that out there. I appreciate what Vincent said. I agree with what he's saying. The trend just can't continue. And I understand the position you're in, but I too have to speak up and say something because you all need to understand what this does impact.
Councilor Carey?
So thank you for sharing that. So with this HVAC contract, is this contractor, competitive? Is he high, like with his new prices?
So he's in line with other companies that do similar work, HVAC work. Again, the good news is if there is any that, we will be going out to bid next year for the following year, right? So it gives me time to prepare and do everything I have to do. I mean, we don't have a choice. You know what I'm saying? I don't have time to go out to bid, so I don't have a choice but to take his number. Is it crazy? No. I mean, I negotiated a number of $110 an hour, which I was surprised that they took when I negotiated it. So I think they were a little low, but he said to me, look, I'm not making any money on this account. So I'm either gonna walk away, or I'm gonna increase the cost per hour so that we make some money as well. And I said, that's fair. I mean, if I go somewhere else, they're gonna do the same thing, right? His number has to be competitive, otherwise it wouldn't be business.
And then on things like, I always say the word, I'm gonna call it an air conditioner, right, the coolers, whatever they are, that.
I'm sorry?
Whatever it was that broke,
Oh, yes, cooling tower piping or the library air handling unit.
but now the one in the senior center is breaking?
So we're still investigating, but we know that there's a leak somewhere. The question is, there's a couple of options of repair. We don't know to what extent we can do that yet. So I don't know a total cost, but it's not gonna be something that I have the money in my budget for, as Patty and I have already discussed.
So for our coolers, do we have a list of all of them and then how old they are and?
Everyone,
Okay.
every year, everyone.
So do we make assumptions around which ones we think are gonna go, like, I'll use my own house, like I
This is
expect.
piping only. This is just the piping from the
Okay.
building to the cooling tower, not the cooling tower, not the HVAC equipment. It's the piping from the building to the cooling tower.
Oh, okay.
It's underground.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Okay, thank you.
You're welcome.
And that 110 to 150 hour increase, the $40, that's just for the technician to come out and
That's
look,
his labor rate, period.
to come out and look.
Yep,
It's like when a repairman comes to your home for your appliance,
that's correct.
which I just paid $160-something, so,
Yeah.
okay, that's what I thought. Thank you. Counselor King?
Yeah, just a quick follow-up. Thank you for that.
You're welcome.
We'd rather need to hear the real before all of a sudden something falls apart and then nobody said anything. Just an inquiry, just on something that I read not too long ago. I forget what town, and I'm not trying to get into the comparison of towns. From a preventive standpoint, when we're talking about maybe future thoughts, solar paneling, all of that type of stuff, say, electricity is just going to keep going up. Right now with AI, if you haven't heard about it, yes, it's going up everywhere. And we're only going to be affected by it even more. Have we ever thought about solar on everything, everywhere?
We have a power purchase agreement with solar. We have a solar array, 3 of them in Windsor. I don't know if they're all in Windsor, but, and we get our power from that, partial power from that. So the power purchase agreement is a 25-year agreement with a company called Lodestar. So it's a net metering solar agreement. So it takes into account every town building, WPCA, everybody. We're all the accounts, town accounts, except for the Board of Ed, are in this power purchase agreement. So they all take advantage of this solar net metering.
You're probably thinking of putting solar panels on buildings, right? Is that what you're?
Correct. Yes, I'm thinking, and maybe, and I apologize, I just don't want to belabor the point, but thank you, Madam Mayor. I'm just talking about solar in a way that eventually we get to the point where we're at zero. So we're not paying out anything to anybody because we're getting the natural.
Net zero is a whole nother scenario, right? It costs money to go net zero.
Agreed.
Yeah.
But is now the time to be thinking, and I know we're tight budgeted and all that other type of stuff, but I'm just thinking 5 years, nobody thought about the virus and all the stuff that kind of has spiraled to the point where we are now. Are there certain things that you have thought about, and you just brought it up, to put in place to say, okay, you know what, 5 years from now, 7 years from now, I wish we would have done this?
Yeah, so here's the thing about an agreement, a power purchase agreement. They tell you how much solar you can add to the system. So because we're already pulling solar from this company, we can't just add solar on our roofs if we wanted to, because now we're taking away from their profit, if you will.
Counselor Pendleton?
Thank you, I'm glad you brought that up. Mr. Maniscalco, didn't you have a slide that said something about our energy was like $98,000 or something? I thought I saw that number on one of your slides.
It was a cost increase, I believe.
For energy? For electricity, energy and
I
stuff?
think it was utilities in general.
Because I thought we had a savings getting it from the,
Well, sure, there's a savings, but
Yeah,
the
so-
cost is going up.
Yeah, so remember, our savings are on the generation side, not the transmission distribution side, so that always is gonna go up. But we only get the half of the utility bill, basically, and that's where our savings are come out of, if you will. And we are, as I said before, we are adding HVAC units at the town garage. We do have to pay for that. Electricity, we have to pay for the pavilion at the upper VMP. We have to pay the additional utility cost for water for the splash pad.
how much is the water for the splash pad?
Um,
It's recycled though, isn't it?
No. No, we are
What?
looking at potentially the viability of putting a well in. We're just kind of breaking the ground right now on that, if you will, in the terms of engineering side of things and whether it's even cost effective to do that. But the water for the splash pad is $60,000 a year.
And it's Connecticut water.
That's correct.
So it's opening a spigot and just letting the water run.
That's correct.
Not filtering it, not reusing it like VMP does. Just open a spigot and let it flow.
Oh, VMP doesn't recycle though. They don't recycle either.
They filter it, it goes
Oh,
through
they fil-
filters.
But it's a pool, so you have to, right?
Well,
This is a little different. It's a little, if you.
This
if
falls
you-
under different guidelines. There would have been,
so there has to be fresh water coming all the time. Open it, crank it, let it go.
It can be
it's on a,
recirculated, but
it could be recirculated, but the guidelines would have been significant and cost prohibitive, one in construction, two in actual maintenance and management.
and
it's
people-
not
and-
just open spigot run. There is a timer on it, so it turns off, and as long as somebody's there and they hit the button to go again, then it runs again. But it doesn't just run 24/7.
No, but all day long, it just keeps flowing.
When the kids keep hitting the button.
If they hit the button. If
Well,
there's
is there
someone
not water in the
using it.
splash pad on the bottom? And that has to be, is it,
No, so
Have you
so
not-
whenever
no.
somebody comes to the splash pad, they
Yeah.
hit the button, all the features spit water out, right?
Okay.
And that goes down the drain to the storm drain and does not get recirculated in any way, shape, or form. That water goes right to the treatment plant. or
do we have a
wherever it
count on how many gallons of water goes through that?
goes. I did. Let's see here.
Maybe you can get back to me on that.
Okay.
Thanks.
It's millions of gallons.
Millions?
Yes.
Thank you.
I think you need to recognize it's probably one of the most popular attractions that we had in our parks last year, and it received a significant amount of use. I do think part of that was because it was a brand-new splash pad, and it was posted on a number of social media sites as a brand-new splash pad. I think we saw a number of people coming from outside of our community to use it. Plus, we had some pretty hot days.
Record-breaking
this
heat
last
waves,
summer.
number of heat waves last year.
So hopefully if the summer is a little more mild, it's no longer brand new, hopefully that'll be a little bit different.
No, I have no issue with the splash pad. It's a great feature to have in our community for the little people and let them go in there and families go in there, whatever. I have no problem with that. What I have a problem with is wastefulness of water. When we need to be conserving water, we need to be worried about water, to take care of that water somehow and give it back, use it back, put it somewhere else, get it out of there, go water our parks with it, do something with it. Where is it going now?
To the treatment plant.
Where?
To the treatment plant,
Okay. And then into the Connecticut River?
after it's treated, maybe.
Yeah. Okay, thank you.
You're welcome.
I think we're all set. Thank you.
You're very welcome. Thank you.
Have a good night.
Thank you.
Okay. Moving on to 13C, Counselor Lewis.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Resolution setting a public hearing to receive citizen input on the general government proposed budget for fiscal year 25-26. Be it resolved that the town of South Windsor Town Council hereby sets Monday, April 7th, 2025 at 8:30 p.m. in the Town Council Chambers of the South Windsor Town Hall at 1540 Sullivan Avenue, South Windsor, Connecticut, at the time and place for this public hearing to receive citizen input on the proposed general government budget for fiscal year 2025/2026.
Okay, we have a motion, we have a second. Any discussion? Counselor Lewis? All those in favor, say aye. Aye. Opposed? Abstentions? Hearing none, resolution carries. Okay, moving on to 13D, Counselor Baganski.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Resolution adopting a modified schedule of depreciation for motor vehicles in accordance with Connecticut General Statute 12-63B7B. Whereas the Connecticut General Assembly passed...
Hold on 1 second. There's a revised resolution you're supposed to be reading, correct? You reading this one?
Resolution adopting a modified schedule of depreciation for motor vehicles in accordance with Connecticut General Statute 12-63B7B. Whereas the Connecticut General Assembly passed House Bill 7067, having an effective date of passage of February 25th, 2025, and which bill has been signed into law, and whereas House Bill 7067 permits the Town Council by resolution to elect to apply a modified schedule of depreciation with respect to motor vehicles based on the manufacturer's suggested retail price, MSRP, as set forth in said statute, commencing with the values of new vehicles up to 1 year old at 90% of their MSRP and decreasing annually by 5% with a minimum assessment amount of $500. Now therefore be it resolved that in accordance with Connecticut General Statute Section 12-63B7B, the South Windsor Town Council hereby elects to apply the modified depreciation schedule to the October 1, 2024 grand list and subsequent grand lists in accordance with such statute.
Second.
Okay, we have a motion, we have a second. Any discussion, questions? Okay, seeing none, all those in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed? Hearing none, resolution passes. Councilor Carey, did you want to put your vote in for the resolution?
Which one? Did we decide to go with the 90%?
We just voted on it, so would you like to say yes or no?
Yes, I think we should go with the 90%.
Okay.
Sorry.
Okay, resolution passes then, with 8. Thank you. Okay, moving on to 13G, Counselor Carey.
Resolution approving refund batch number 15 for 7 refunds totaling $4,731.49. Be it resolved that the South Windsor Town Council hereby approves 7 refunds, the total of said refunds being $4,731.49, as more fully described in Exhibit B.
We have a motion, we have a second. Any discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Hearing none, resolution passes. Moving on to item 14, passage of ordinance. Councilor King.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Resolution adopting the amendments to ordinance number 2237 for the Agricultural Commission. Be it resolved that the South Windsor Town Council hereby adopts the amendments to ordinance 237, the Agricultural Commission, as shown in Exhibit A.
Second.
Okay, we have a motion, we have a second. Any discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed? Hearing none, resolution passes. Okay. Moving on to item 15, public input for any matter. Public input for any Other matter over which the council has jurisdiction shall not exceed 30 minutes. When recognized by the mayor, the speaker shall approach the lectern, give their name and address. Speakers shall avoid personal attacks or imputing or alleging an improper motive to any person. The speakers may address the council on any item over which a council has jurisdiction. The speaker shall limit their speaking time to 5 minutes. Is there anyone who would like to speak at this time? Mr. Kennedy.
Yeah, Joe Kennedy, 81 Ellis Drive. First, I'd like to thank the town manager and all the departments heads for all their hard work. I mean, these are uncertain times right now, and I'd like to thank the council for passing our ordinance. I heard a couple people talk about inflation. Inflation comes down to tariffs. Tariff is a tax on a consumer. There are no winners in a trade war. What we got going now, you got United States, Canada, and Mexico. 2 administrations ago, North American Trade Treaty was passed, and it was pretty good, especially when it comes to cars going in from Canada to United States, Mexico parts. April 2nd, if this trade war continues, it's gonna hurt everyone. It's gonna hurt town budgets, it's gonna hurt people's budgets. There's a possibility of a trade war with the U.S., China, Canada, Mexico, Europe. Comes down to one person. We got to speak truth to power. The president shouldn't continue this trade war. We already lost $5 trillion in the stock market. That hurts all people saving for their 401ks. 60% of the Americans trade in the stock market. So I'm saying we should just maybe drop a line, say, President Trump, this is not a good thing to do. Not only that, if it does happen, cars will go up 10,000, housing will go up. Now, our town, Mike's done a great job in planning department and the economic development commission. There's a lot of stuff online, but inflation is going to hurt everyone. I'd like to mention people that are on Social Security. 40% of the people 65 or older, that's the only income they have. So basically, people have to live on $1,800 to $2,200 a month. So I'm saying this is totally unnecessary, and I'm hoping he changes his mind, but we must speak truth to power. And then finally, we stand with our brothers and sisters in Ukraine against Russian dictator Putin. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Mr. Kennedy. And, okay, seeing no others, moving on to item 16, communications from the council. Any communications? Councilor Fitzgerald.
Hi, yes, thanks, Madam Mayor. I just wanted to let everyone in the public know that through the South Windsor Youth and Family Services and the South Windsor Alliance for Families, they have their 2025 Make a Change or MAC mini grant application process that's open right now. So these mini grants encourage students to put kind of ideas that they have into action. Students at any of the schools here in town, and it can be an individual student, a group of students, or an entire classroom, can apply for this grant. It's a maximum of $200, and you have to. It has to fulfill one of 4 criteria for the South Windsor schools. It has to promote or inspire kindness, contribute to positive mental health or emotional wellness, supports inclusion and respect, or encourages a positive school community. So students have to talk to their principals and I guess apply through them first. The applications are due by April 4th, and the announcements of the grants will be made on April 11th. And if you go to the South Windsor Youth and Family Services website, there's more information there, and the application can be found on their website. Thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else? Seeing none, Moving on to 17, executive session, having none. Item 18, motion to adjourn.
Second.
Second, all those in favor say aye. Aye. Adjourned.